I'm actually removing my front bumper to install this Ironman 4x4 front bumper here. Hey YouTube, thanks again for stopping by my channel. Rocking the new hat here, as you can see. But today I'm gonna finally be talking about how I installed this front bumper on my 2004 Toyota Sequoia. So this bumper, I still believe, is the best bang for the buck you can get. You can see it's an Ironman 4x4. They regularly have 25% off sales. You get free shipping with these. And I think the normal price on this bumper is like $12.99 or something like that. With the 25% off, I think I paid like $9.80 shipped, and it comes powder coated. So with all of that considered, is actually a very, very good deal. These are kind of like rubberized as well, so you know, if you're on a ranch, you could bump some of the gates and all that. But this specific bumper is for a 100 series Land Cruiser. So an LC100, this is, I think they call it the classic bumper or something like that. It does come with a license plate mount. You can't really see it too well. But the goal that I had when making this bumper fit the Sequoia was to hopefully get it modified and just have to make some really quick and easy adapter brackets to get this to mount on here. I'd seen some of the forums online talk about people putting a 100 series Land Cruiser bumper on their Sequoia, and it seemed like it was pretty easy to do off what I was able to read, but there wasn't any information on it. So I went ahead and took this on. Turns out there's a lot more modification that needed to be done for this specific bumper. It might be different for others, I don't know. But there's a lot more modification that needed to be done for this bumper to fit the Sequoia than I was hoping for. I think even if you have to pay a fab guy to do this work for you, it's still gonna come out to be cheaper in the long run because the bumper's cheaper. It already is powder coated, comes with everything you need. It even comes with these fog lights already and these indicator lights too. So it's a great value for what you get. I will kind of go over what needed to be done here. So while I was making the bumper videos for you guys, you know, we kind of had a few different game plans, and of course plans change as you get into it and you're starting to make the things. So I thought I had a lot more footage of the actual fabrication process than I actually do, but I still have enough to kind of go over what we did and how you guys can figure it out. But I'll go ahead and put all that in together for you guys to watch. The biggest thing is I thought that the frame rails for the 100 series Land Cruiser and the Sequoia would be near identical. However, frame rails on the 100 series Land Cruiser from outer edge to outer edge are about an inch closer to the middle of the vehicle than what the Sequoias are. So that's where the problem came from, having to make modifications to fit this bumper on. So the way that this bumper works is there's a subframe that the bumper attaches to. Let me get up under here. So there's a subframe that you attach first to the frame rails. So that's what this is right here. And that's what the winch attaches to. And the bumper, you can see, has three little bolts that just kind of adjust the attitude of the bumper. And you can quickly and easily put on and put off this front bumper shell. But the real bugger was to make this subframe fit the Toyota Sequoia frame rail. So you can see here, this is the original part of the bracket that attaches onto the Land Cruiser 100 series frame rails. You can see the outside edge of it is pretty much in line with the seam of your Sequoia bumper. So you can kind of get a picture of how much more narrow the Land Cruiser 100 series bumper is compared to the Sequoia just by looking at the seams of your current frame rail. So let's go ahead and get into the videos of the fabrication for you guys. So this is really the only part that we're gonna have to modify to fit these frame rails. Cutting these front brackets off, and we're going to try and modify the frames to fit into this channel. I'm trying to dry fit the bumper here just to kind of see how we need to modify the actual bracket. We did cut off the front little piece of each frame rail right here, and it's looking like it's going to be just barely too small this is going to be too small to fit over that, just barely. So we're going to have to figure out some way to go about it. We just dry fit the bumper up here. We need to bring this bracket back a few inches. You can see right now, this is like 3.5 inches deep, and it's sitting right up on the front of the frame rails. We're probably going to bring this back 2 inches, and you can see the actual Land Cruiser 100 series width of frame rails is much more narrow than the Sequoia. You can see there's a seam on the top of the frame rails here. That's about where this bracket sits. What do you have to say, Robert, for this whole project here?
It should be a springtime project, perhaps a fall project. The Texas sun is pretty warm today.
Yeah, very, very warm.
Burn out your camera.
We got Robert over there on the welding machine doing his thing. I'm just gonna go over what I did here. So this power steering coolant line was in the way of what we're planning on doing. So what I ended up doing is I swapped these two hoses. This one was on the top, this one was on the bottom. I don't remember which orientation this pipe was in. I think it was the other way, but if it's not, just know that the loop needs to jut into the radiator and condenser instead of out. So I used this, normally had two little brackets similar to this, and this little piece where it's mounted was at a 90 degree. So what I did is like I said, I rotated the hoses. I think I rotated this coolant line here. And then I had to loosen this 10mm bolt here to reposition it to get perfectly in line with this bracket right here. I screwed this in and then I bent it to kind of get out of the way like this. And this hose down here is kind of close. You can see, I mean, I think there's enough room for it to, you know, move around a little bit and still not touch anything. So, yep, that's the game plan. That is gonna be mounted across the frame rails right here. And we cut off the front bracket, which had that little bumper bar, that kind of curved bar here. There's two flat brackets that were on each side. And we cut off the welding tabs and everything.
Super hot. You touched the end.
So that's how we're gonna go about doing this first. Something similar to that. And then we're gonna mount this Land Cruiser 100 series. We're gonna weld it to this bar right here. So the goal is we're gonna be drilling 2 holes in, you can see this little section of frame rail right here. We're gonna have our holes through there. You can see the channel over here is it's tapered.
Yeah, the tapered flanges.
You can see right there. So we're probably gonna have to cut off some of this frame rail on both the top and the bottom so it sits perfectly flush. All right, we're just about ready to cut the holes in the frame here. So we trimmed up the front of the frame like I showed you earlier. We went ahead and notched this out just to make sure that we had some room for these lines here. You can see it's not touching. I am still probably going to put something just on the actual metal right here just to keep it from rubbing. We're getting ready. We're centering it up right now. We're about to drill the holes. We're punching these holes out for the brackets that are going to be welded on the inside of the makeshift bumper.
Pretty fast.
Yeah, way quicker than a drill. You have to use this. Do not drill it. You have to go out and buy one of these machines. I'm kidding. Okay, so we just punched these holes out here. What we're gonna do is, you can see the line drawn right here. Basically, we're gonna weld this on. This is the perfect width of these frame rails. But what we did before we punched these holes out on this angle, we scooted the bracket in, he traced the circles in here. He center punched this, so we knew exactly where the center was of these holes that needed to be. And then he went over to his punch machine and punched it out. We punched these, what'd you say, 7/16?
7/16 clear hole for the 3/8 bolt.
Yeah, 7/16 clear hole for the 3/8 bolt that we're going to use. So, okay, we just tacked these brackets on the inside, on both sides, and I mean, there's maybe it's perfect. Okay, so we got this in. These are 5-inch bolts. I ordered some grade 8 bolts, but they haven't arrived yet, so these are just galvanized, although they will be changed out. The width from this thing is 39 inches, and the total width of this bumper frame, whatever, crash bar frame that for the Land Cruiser 100 series is 36 inches. So we drew a line in the middle over here. We're going to center that up here. So modifications that we made for this is, you can see these square ears. These are the pieces that actually attach to the frame rails on the Land Cruiser 100 series. You know, the block came out to about here, and then on the bottom there was a longer tab that came out on both sides. We just cut that off. I think we left, so yeah, these are 2 inches on both sides that we left, and then we had to trim off a little bit of this winch plate. We're going to make another winch plate topper for it, but right now we're going to attach this to the actual bumper piece we made.
I wanted to use 3/8 bolts because I wanted to pair and to get them as far apart as I could to help distribute any kind of twisting or any kind of off-centered load. Also on the frame, there was a preformed, what we're assuming is a crumple zone of pinch ends, and this was located to be right in the center of those two crumple zones, and it's at least 1.5 inches back and 1 inch down from the top and 1 inch from the bottom. So 1 inch, 2 inches apart, and 1 inch again at the bottom. These are just 3/8 bolts for assembly, but we'll upgrade those to a grade 8, and we'll have grade 8s, 3/8 inch diameter going through one side of the frame rail and the other side of the frame rail. And our modified piece, or our fabricated piece, has 3/16 plates on either side of that. So we have nice sheer, straight sheer bolts, so we can use a little bit smaller of a diameter and use a higher strength, and hopefully that should be around 3,000 pounds per unit there of just straight shear. So if you're winching, I mean, that's really the only time you're going to have any kind of negative load on this. Other than that, if you're in an impact, everything's getting pushed back in anyway. So we think that'll be sufficient. We've probably got 6,000, 6,012 combined. We're hoping that's enough, and it won't just pull right through the 16th frame rails that the Toyota is using for their chassis.
And even the winch bolts are probably lower grade than these, right?
I think they were 5/16. We could have gone with 1/2 inch hardware. I know a bunch of the off-road stuff is massive, big holes, but we didn't want to cut so much of the frame that we lost any integrity there. And these 3/8 bolts are going to be fine for that. We can pull this off, and you can see how clean they are. We're going to do this weld anyway. Fits really nice.
And you can see this is the crumple zone he was talking about. We're right in the middle of that rectangular zone right there.
Yeah, and these we center punched and match drilled that once we had this where we wanted to, so we didn't have to fight and hammer and pound this thing on. Fits really nice. And anyway, so whenever this is all mounted, you would have to tear this through 1.5 inches to 2 inches of material, and we just feel like there's going to be something else is going to give before it does this. No sense in making humongous holes here and weakening this.
We cut these little channels in here just to allow some drainage of water whenever it's welded onto the plate here. Right next to a propane tank, just like we like it.
It's not gonna blow away.
I don't know, I don't think it's beefy enough. Y'all, this is Robert. He owns Bumpy Pickle Beach Sand Volleyball here in the DFW area. If you're over here, I definitely recommend checking it out. I always play in their leagues over here. Super fun. Friday nights, $5 open play. A lot of people stop on in. Definitely come check them out. All right, so we got the makeshift bracket all mounted up. We still need to change this hardware out with grade 8 hardware whenever it gets in the mail to me. We're tightening this up now. And the other thing we need to do is make the adjustment winch bracket. We're gonna move it forward just a little bit. But other than that, there's enough wiggle room with these holes here. With the bumper, there's a lot of play up and down, forward and back. So this is gonna be just perfect. Oh, there it is. There's a little bit more of a gap around here than what I was hoping for. However, I'm gonna go back and paint all the stuff under the hood just like a matte black paint so it doesn't look as noticeable. And the hood is able to open up how it is here. I'll back up and get a better side profile. Okay guys, this is a few months, maybe like 2 months later. We got this winch plate. We're having to modify the actual winch mounting plate because we had to cut a little bit of the back off to make this work. We did have to bend this line just back just a little bit just to clear the back of the winch. But we're about to start getting this attached. We're just going to attach the plate to the original winch plate using some 1/2-inch bolts.
How's that?
Looks perfect to me. So here is the end product of the modifications we needed to make. This is a lot more mods than I was hoping for. If you look right here, you can see this is where the original mount that went over the frame for the Land Cruiser 100 series went. It's roughly where the middle seam is on the frame rails here. You can see over here, it ends right here and the seam is right here. So because of that, you can't just make simple adapter plates to work with the Sequoia here, like some of the forums said with some other bumpers. You might be able to do that with some other bumpers, but not with this one. So what we had to do is we cut off this section right here. I think this is about 2 inches. Cut off this section. We made this piece that attaches to the frame rail that goes all the way across. And then we basically welded the subframe to that. But in order to do that, we had to cut the back of the original winch plate to basically scoot it back far enough to weld how we wanted it. Then we had to add this winch plate, which is a lot thicker than the factory one. We cut the old winch plate off about 1 inch in over these curves right here. We welded all down the side, all down right here, all across the back, all across the bottom, all across this side, and same over here. So for this winch plate to pull forward, before it was just mounted on this bar, which is fine. But in order for this winch plate to pull forward, it has to pull this bar and this U-channel, this really thick U-channel back here, which is not going to happen. If it does, I have more serious problems on my hands. So about to put the winch on and then get all the wires run and stuff. And then from there, we're going to modify the bumper holes that go into here, but on the actual bumper itself, as to raise the bumper a little higher. And I'm probably going to come through and paint all this stuff black just so it's not as noticeable with the bumper gapping that's on the Sequoia, not the Land Cruiser, but I'll show you guys all that. Here is the final product of the bumper. You can see there is still a little bit of a gap, but it's not too bad. We did modify the opening holes on the shell bumper of the 3 holes that attach to the subframe. We kind of wallowed those out a little bit. You can see I painted all that just with spray can black on the inside so it doesn't catch your eye as much. I'm still able to get my hand in here, barely, but I have very large hands, and move the clutch thing in and out. And then it has 2 holes. You can see it came with this little S-shaped bracket for the license plate. The bumper did, and I just moved that over and mounted it over that direction. For the fog lights here, I simply used the factory fog light wiring harness. I just got a little pigtail to attach onto the wires coming out of the fog light, so I can just plug it directly into the factory wiring harness and use the fog light switch on the inside. And I have not wired up the indicator lights yet. I need to do that. For those curious, these recovery points are also from Ironman 4x4. You can only do this if you plan with these. These are also for the Land Cruiser 100 series. I was hoping that they would be a direct bolt-on match, but they're not. You can only get these for your Sequoia if you're going to modify the frame. I had to have access to the inside of the frame rail to put these backer plates on the inside. If you are not going to cut off that flat plate on the front of your frame rail, these will not work for you. So on both sides, I used one of the original bolt holes, threaded holes that are already there, and then I had to drill in another hole through the frame, and the back bolt is what actually attaches to the backer plate on the inside. So that is how I did these recovery points. All in all, I'm very happy with how the bumper turned out. I will say I'm a little bit disappointed with Ironman 4x4. Whenever I first reached out to them, I told them, that this is kind of what I had planned. They would probably sell quite a few units with the Sequoia community if they made a modified version of their own subframe to match this. One of the guys who was in charge of the Ironman 4x4 USA group reached out to their engineers in Australia, I believe, and they came back with information that they're not going to modify it themselves. That could be because these are airbag rated and safety rated, so they probably just don't want to mess with that rating. I don't know what the root cause was, but that's my assumption. So then, fast forward, they were going to give me a discount on purchasing this bumper if I was going to share the dimensions of everything for the subframe to them afterwards. Well, then when it came time for me to purchase it, they said, no, we're not going to give you a discount. But it was right close to the time when St. Patrick's Day was coming up, and they were having a St. Patrick's Day sale. I think it was 25% off. So I just went ahead and purchased that. Then, lastly, the most frustrating thing to me is what got all of this started was I was trying to do this to bring this bumper to more of you guys in the Sequoia community because I wanted another option for us all. And they were going to give me a discount code to give to you guys for all of this. But of course, whenever I asked for it, after I'd purchased it, after I'd made all the modifications and figured out that this could be a viable option for us, I reached out to get a discount code for you guys to put on my videos and to send out, so that way everyone would get a better price on this. Or even if it was a continuous 25% off just for these bumpers, just for us, instead of having to wait until they do the sales. That I would have even been okay with that, but they didn't give me a single discount code for any of you guys, so I'm a little bit ticked off on how they handled it. But I still think the bumper's a good quality bumper. It's built really nice. It's got some great features, and it's the best value really for what's out there. So take that information for what it's worth. I hope this helped you guys out. if you do want to do this yourself, I have the drawings of the dimensions and everything. Reach out to me. I'll try to get them over to you. Again, I think this bumper looks great, and it's not a perfect fit. And after I modified those 3 holes, like I mentioned, I walled those holes out. I wanted this bar to be a little bit closer to the actual Sequoia. So you can see here, it scratches a little bit on the bottom bumper here. More so, these scratches are from my actual light bar, but I'm going to change those out soon. But because of the angle that I wanted this specific bar, you can see it does scratch a little bit on here. So I don't know if you want to put some kind of like vinyl tape over it or something, or if you wanted yourself to just tilt this up just a little bit, it would keep that from happening. But I like the way that the bumper looked, how it sits like this. I think it looks great. It's not a direct fit. Needed modification, but I think for the price, the value, and everything you get from it, I think this is a great option. Also, if you look, this is for an antenna. Obviously the Australians have right-hand drive vehicles, so this would be on the passenger side, but for us, this is on the driver's side here. I know this video isn't perfect. I had to splice together clips during the modification process that were exactly what we used, and the mods that we made on the subframe. I had a whole bunch of other videos of other routes that we were going down that we had to end up changing plans and changing designs and stuff like that. But this at least gives you the general idea of what we had to do for my bumper here. So I hope that helped you guys out. I hope this, helps 1 or 2 of you guys out. I know not everyone's going to be wanting to make these mods on this bumper, but for those of you who want a cheaper alternative, this I think is a good option. Again, like always, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate you taking the time today to watch this video. Keep on enjoying life out there, guys.